So this is the final report for our working group for the Biome Institute 2020. Our topic was looking at course-based undergraduate research experiences that use digital data from natural history collections. We worked in conjunction with BLUE, which is an RCN in undergraduate biology education for biodiversity literacy in undergraduate ed. Our group members, there were 9 of us, including Monfils, Linton, and Rachael Snodgrass from Central Michigan University, Katie Pearson and Jenn Yost from Cal Poly. From the University of Florida, we had Doug and Pam Soltis and Shelly Gaynor, and we had Joanna Jansen from the University of Montreal. So we set up a series of meetings as we first started to talk through some basic conceptual ideas. We reviewed some learning objectives that had been developed as an earlier project with BLUE. We revisited those learning objectives and then looked at a learning progression as it related to all of our individual cures. We employed backward design, and we started to talk about our current cure experiences and what we could draw from those or where we might see gaps. And then we set individual goals or group goals based on what we wanted to accomplish within the Institute. So as we were going through our materials, we identified some gaps that different members wanted to address. One gap a few of us identified related to needing to put more related to ethics into the courses. There was a desire to build some more information about collecting through to where a specimen becomes digitized and where you access data. There was a group that wanted to work on niche modeling, particularly starting with what's a model, then here's an actual example, and that included a couple of people who wanted to build better materials for students to utilize R with natural history collection data. Another gap was students' understanding of stats, so one group member built some small stats modules, and then as a final assessment was conducted by Deb Linton, and she's been looking at developing those assessment tools and aligning those with the learning goals. So the very first person to deliver materials and produce a product would be Katie Pearson. She wanted to look at citing sources for natural history collections data, made a video to address this, and then an accompanying assignment, and that has been published to the Cubes Hub. The next project was to look at natural history and traditional ecological knowledge and how traditional ecological knowledge could work alongside Western knowledge to create a better understanding of the natural world. This touched on several of the ethics issues in terms of data ownership, in terms of the importance of diversity and inclusion. That has now been published to the Cubes Hub as well. Jenn Yost had worked with the specimen data from the Consortium of California Herbaria and several phenology projects and developed that into a cure. And she developed a separate set of materials that is close to being finished that looks at how you can use that data portal to address questions in science, and also how you could look at the actual specimen and the information that might be contained there. Pam Soltis was looking at modeling and really bringing it from the really core basic idea of what a model was through more complex ideas of model types in science. Her work was also going to look at how this might relate to phylogenies and was going to feed into the project that Doug was looking at, which was applying niche modeling and looking at predictive modeling relative to climate change in the flora of Florida. The next step was Shelly Gaynor, really developing the core materials to help introduce R to students working with biodiversity data, with the idea that those core skills would align with the learning how to niche model and the Florida assignment. Joanna was working on the idea of taxonomy and how you could rectify taxonomy within R. It was taking the next step after Shelly Gaynor's work, where students had been introduced to R, to applying it to a specific question, and that is in development. Rachael Snodgrass took on the challenge of developing materials for students who needed assistance working with statistical analysis and natural history collection data. And she developed this in a modular way so that individual sections or individual tests could be separated out and used in a classroom, or they could be used together as a group, and students could learn several different tests at the same time. And Deb Linton looked at assessing the core biodiversity data literacy skills that had been brought up in several of these different cures and in several of these different exercises. And we all reviewed some materials that she had already built, and she continued to work on those and is working towards a concept inventory. So as our next steps, we have final presentations of all the materials this Friday, and hopefully this will expand into additional materials that we can publish as OER resources that can be used across lots of different cures. I have to say I had a fantastic group, and it was a joy working with all of them and hearing about all the great work that they've been doing with cures at their home institutions. In addition, it is always a pleasure to work with BioQuest and Cubes, and all their work and support was greatly appreciated as well.